Okay. What's going on, everybody? I hope you guys had a great day and a great Easter. So today I'm going to be doing what we normally do. I'll be sending out 8 tickers, and I want you guys to take some time to go over them, look for any patterns, and generally these are going to be on the daily 4-hour, just to get you guys a better idea because it's a little cleaner on those bigger time frames. But then I'm going to give you guys the 10 minutes, and then we'll go over them as a group. Okay, so sending the list in alpha right now. Okay, now I'll give you guys 10 minutes to go over those. So firstly, Mara is going to kind of be an analysis, but also going to be kind of a play recap to see what Clark actually saw today when he alerted Mara. All right, so what does anyone see, either on the daily or the 4-hour? Pennant. Okay, I can probably see that here. All right, so if we go to the 4-hour, it's probably easier to see. Right, so yeah, so good here, right? Or however you want to draw it, right? So yes. All right. So like I say in a lot of my videos, right, a lot of these patterns can be other patterns, right? So a bowl pennant could just be the right side of a cup and handle, right? And so that's really what we see here, right? So inverse head and shoulders. On what time frame? So you're saying this is the head right here? So you're saying this is the head? So yeah, the basic concept here is like what Double D Wub said, right? We have a clear level here, right? This is all-time highs right here on the left, right? And we come up, we rally. So is this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-day rally right into resistance, and then we couldn't stay over, right? We got over, couldn't stay over, so we dipped a little bit, and then today we held over that level, right? And that's what Clark said in his alert, if you go back, that we broke all-time highs and then we held it. All right. So we have that bull pennant or the cup and handle, however you want to see it, just this important level, and we broke over it and then we held it. All right. Does everyone see that? So we could even go here on the hourly and kind of see it as well. All right, so however you want to see this, right? But the important thing is we broke over, consolidated right at this level, and then we broke out, held it, and continued higher. All right, and then we could see there's actually a decent amount of volume. So let me zoom in here. So this white line here is the 30-day average for volume, right? So we actually see volume was higher than yesterday. So we were green, increasing volume, and then on this little pullback, we actually started losing volume, and then we increased in volume, right? So that's pretty textbook volume breakout, right? When we're green, we're increasing in volume, then we start to die down a little bit for that consolidation, and then we increase in volume again, straight through the resistance. All right, does anyone have any questions there?
So you just trust that once it breaks that line?
Okay, so like I said earlier, or in a different video, right? When you have these big time frame like areas, they're not always going to be super exact, right? So like if I just drew a random line here, right, this kind of looks like resistance, right? We rejected here, 2, 3, 4. it's really important for that confirmation, right? So maybe if you're on a small time frame, one candle breaks it and it holds, and then you get another one for that confirmation, then it's a buy, right? But on these big time frames, these levels aren't like really exact, right? They're not really pinpoint, right? So that's kind of how you have to see like when you trade, right? So the 1 minute is going to be like super exact, like this level, this exact dollar, this cent, right? These bigger time frames are just going to be more general areas, right? So it's really important to get that confirmation that we're breaking out, right? Because you're trying to use these big time frames levels on the small time frames to get good entries, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if we're on a small time frame, and let's just draw a level here, so you can actually see, I don't know if you guys can see this level, but it's pretty accurate, right? We bounced here pre-market, we were holding it, came down, bounced, came down, bounced in that area pre-market again, bounced today there at that exact same level. So the smaller time frames are going to be more exact. The bigger time frames give you more of a general idea, if that makes sense. But once again, no matter what time frame you're on, it's never going to be exact, right? Because that would just be too easy. Right? So confirmation of the breakout's always important. Right? One little candle over a resistance isn't considered a breakout. Right? It's got to break that area, then the next candle has to hold, and then we can get in, right? We have the breakout candle, then we have the confirmation candle, and then we can get in the trade. Right? Okay, I hope that answered your question. Okay, so on to Veil. What do you guys see on Veil?
A gap up.
Okay, definite gap up.
Testing that resistance line right there at like 1850.
Yeah. So here. All right, we could
consolidating. Was it then before we did that gap?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
Wait for like 2-3 more candles maybe.
Yeah, so if we actually draw this out, something like this, or we could draw it like this. Whatever you want to see here, right? There's definite some kind of trend, right? Trend line going down. All right. So we've been making lower highs, right? Lower highs, right? And we just continue down consolidation, and then we gap up over both those areas. Right? And so the next area we could see a potential resistance is this candle, right? This wick. All right, this wick, and then we actually gap down pretty hard. So 18, and we gap down all the way to 17.5. That's a 0.5. That's a 50-cent move, right there. So over this, though, I expect a pretty large move back to 19. All right, but I wanted to talk about like why this is actually important. So there's actually a bunch of catalyst going on, and I always tell you guys about catalyst, right? We want something that drives that stock, right? We don't want just something moving because there's no news. It's just moving for no reason. So kind of like AMC and GME, right? We make a lot of money sometimes, but then we could also get burned just as fast, right? Because there's nothing really moving and just people buying it for no reason. So that's important when you're looking to get into a trade to make sure there's some kind of news or catalyst that is pushing the price. So before we even go over here, we can go back to Microsoft. I know Clark alerted Microsoft a couple of days ago because they had a big deal with the U.S. military. And so we can actually see on this candle, that's when the news was dropped. And then I know his contracts hit 100% the next day. But if you just held it, we got to 250. Right, and this is a catalyst play. Right, I know tech had been running, right, but that's double, right? So we have really good news on Microsoft, and then the whole tech industry is moving, right? That whole sector is moving. All right, so we get double push right there. So on Veil, let's go back to the daily. Okay, so here, right, let's look at some of the news. We have a price upgrade to 25. Let's see, RBC capital boost price targets across industrial metal sector. So the whole sector is looking really solid. And then they had a $270 million share buyback. All right, so they're going to start buying back their shares. Right, so people are going to be wanting to buy the stock. So when they buy them back, right, they buy it at a higher premium. Right. So a lot of things going into this, but then if we also look at the indicator side, right, it's also lining up with the news. How funny that happens, right? So we actually see on the regular MACD, we just turned green. We actually turned green yesterday, but we gapped up today, turned green. The Wilders are about to turn, actually they did turn green. Yeah, so they turned green today. And then we had more volume today than yesterday, and we're actually over the 30-day average. All right, you guys see that? So everything's kind of lining up here. All right, so we have this really long, we have this massive rally, right? So we went from 10 to 19, massive rally. And then we've been consolidating pretty much ever since. All right, so this could be a potential breakout. All right, this is kind of just something we're going to have to see. All right, so you guys have any questions there? Any questions on how I got any of these lines? And then we actually went over this a while ago, and we could actually see that we had this line drawn out before this even happened. This whole, let's circle this. Before this whole area happened, all right? So we came down, touched, bounced really aggressively, and then we draw that line because it's bounced here once and then twice now. And so when it finally came down to that level a third time, we actually bounced again, and then we triple bottomed, right? And then we made a really aggressive move to the upside, all right? Does everyone see that? Okay, moving on. OI, what do you guys see here? Just from a technical standpoint. Actually, let me go to the 4 hour so it's easier to see. Okay, what do you guys see here pattern-wise?
Pattern-wise, left ascending.
Yes, bull pennant. Bull pennant is what I wanted you guys to see. But yes, so this is another one, right? Cup and handle, right? So that's why I tell you guys it's really important to look on the 4 hour, because you'd never see that top of this, the left side of this cup on the daily. You go to the 4 hour and you can see the pre-market and after hours move, right? And we actually see this wick came all the way up here. All right, so this is the cup. We rally, right? We reject this area again, and then we broke through today, right? And then we kind of stayed flat, right? So we can actually see this. We rallied, consolidated around this area, and then rallied some more, and now we've went flat for the day, and then we started moving again at the end of the day. Right. So you can see how many times this actually touched it pretty much exact twice right here. 1, 2. Kind of call this 3, right? So, okay, so we see the pattern, right? So this also, I told you guys, this bull pennant, right, could also be that cup and handle, and vice versa. The cup and handle could also just be this bull pennant on the right side, right? We could also consider this a double bottom, right? So all these patterns are kind of just, they all intertwine with one another. If that makes sense. All right, so let's see if there's any news or catalyst that's pushing this higher. So underweight of 12. So not really, right? So we have the pattern. But we're not having really any news recently, so let's see if there's anything. If we go back from 13, so this is one of those things where we see the pattern, right? But we're not seeing really any catalyst to push it higher, right? So for me, well, actually, they do have earnings coming up at the end of the month. But for me, this would be a potential watch, maybe, right? We have earnings at the end of the month, but not any news as of right now to push this any higher other than earnings coming up, right? Does that make sense? Like, we have the technicals, but I really want that fundamental to be there that drives it. Okay, any questions on OI? Okay. CRIS. What do you guys see here? Other than this massive gap up. Let me give you guys a little hint. Okay, double top, potentially, right? So a cup and handle, right, could also be considered a double top until it's finished. Right, so we double topped here, yep. And then before this was finished, that was just a double top, but then we broke out of this handle, and we're actually making a move to the upside. All right, and then we could also say this is a double bottom, right? So we bottomed at the same area twice. All right. Inverse head and shoulders. I don't see it. I do kind of see this head and shoulders, right? So you see the shoulder, head, shoulder, but then when we broke this level, it's no longer valid. So I pretty much just say this area. So when we broke that level of that shoulder, that right shoulder, that head and shoulder is no longer valid, right? Because now we're making higher highs, we're not making a lower high. Right, so we could potentially be seeing a fairly large move if we finally break out of this 13.13 area because we topped there twice. Right, so a cup and handle right there. Let's see how the volume is. Right, so not a whole lot of volume, right? This stock just doesn't look like it has a whole lot of volume. Right, really small volume. But we did have a lot of volume yesterday, or Friday, or Thursday actually. So let's see if there's anything driving this price action higher. So, okay, with a buy of 19, right? That's incredible. We're at, was it 12.42? So that's a big one right there. 19. Let's see. I think that's really the only thing driving this right now. Yeah, so they had a price upgrade to 19. All right, and normally with stocks with small market caps, it's really easy to move them, right? So there's less people that have to actually be involved to move or drive something higher. That's why for example, Nokia, even though it was one of those meme stocks, it didn't really get pushed very hard because the market cap was so big, right? The market cap was massive, and so it's really hard to move stocks like that, right? So it's really easy to move stocks with small market caps. All right, less volume needed. Okay. So let's take a look at the indicators here because I think this could potentially be a pretty good setup. So we're actually green on both MACDs, right? So we're increasing momentum, right? So we had these dark candles on the histogram, which indicates that we're losing that upward momentum, but we actually just increased the last 2 days. The only thing I would really like to see over this 13.13 level is if that volume really backs it. All right, so we have the technicals telling us it's good, the fundamentals telling us there's something driving it, and then we have the indicators telling us that it's looking pretty solid, right? So the only thing is the weekly, right? Looks like we're losing momentum, but this could easily change as soon as we break this high, right? This all-time high. All right, so that could easily change. So let's check the 4-hour. 4-hour looks solid, right? Both MACDs turned green today. Hourly looks like we're losing a little bit of momentum. But the overall, what I want you guys to see is this all-time high needs to be broken, and then we can potentially keep going higher, because we saw how aggressively we moved up, right? So we went from, what is this, $1 to $13 in like a month span. Not even. Okay, any questions there? Yes, the wick is the all-time high, yeah. So yeah, I'd definitely be waiting for it to get over all-time highs. It's that close. I was just drawing this out for the cup and handle because it looks cleaner. But yeah, 13.44 is definitely what I'd be looking out for. Eggs. Yeah, I see what you're like after you drew it out, but that left side of that shoulder is just as low as the head. Will it have to fill that gap in the future? I mean, so the common rule is like stocks normally fill their gaps, but I mean that isn't always the case. I mean, obviously there's no 100%, right? So I actually remember this. I asked a while ago. I asked someone the same question, right? When I first started trading, I asked them the same question, and so like for example, Target, I remember it gapped up here and we actually never filled it, right? And we just keep going higher and higher and higher, right? So we still have this gap right here. So not necessarily, if that answers your question. It doesn't always fill. I mean, let's see Intel. See, Intel filled, right? Gap up, and then we finally came down. Right? Some stocks, I mean, it really depends. Like you don't really have to fill every single gap. I mean, look how many gaps there is on SPY. I mean, just look like right here, gap, 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 gap. We never filled those. Right? We gapped over here too. Gap, gap. Right? We didn't really fill any of those. So it's not really some stocks. It's kind of, you just have to kind of see like how it plays out. But again, like not everything in the market is always 100%, right? So that's why I can't say every single stock gap fills. If that makes any sense. Okay, so everyone's good on CRIS. Okay. So what do you guys see on MRSN? I was cheating a little bit. There's a few things I want you guys to see here. Anybody? Okay, I'll start drawing lines. Okay, so the first thing I wanted you guys to see is this double bottom, right? So we gapped up, gapped over this level, eventually came down, touched the level, made a really aggressive move to the upside, gapped up, came back down. We actually had this head and shoulders here, if you guys can see this. All right, it's not the cleanest. So let's draw this out. All right. And then we finally broke it and then came back down to this level. So there's one right there, head and shoulders. The second is this double bottom at the same level. And then the third thing is, we never really go over this much, but this could potentially be a bear flag, right? So really aggressive move to the downside. Now we're bear flagging back up and potentially can continue down if we break this 15.47 level, because we see that it bounced twice there. All right. Does everybody see that? Okay, so now let's look at the catalyst that it could potentially have. So 18 price target, so that's where it's at. Let's see. So nothing really after that, right? Just 18 price target and we're already there. So I just really wanted to show you guys that double bottom and being able to recognize, right, where it's bouncing. All right, so you can see that. Let's see. Slabby, could you please mute yourself? Thank you. The way to see these levels, right, and we're just trying to see the areas where we've bounced multiple times or rejected. All right, so we can draw this one here, this wick. Or you can be more conservative and put it here. All right, so we made this cup and handle. We broke out. Then we couldn't break. Let's go to this one more time first. We tried to break this area, right? We couldn't, and then we finally made a really aggressive move from that level. All right, so we have the cup and handle, breakout. Then we broke that really important level, right, the top of that cup, and then we made a very aggressive move to the downside. All right, that's what is this, $9 move. Okay, does anyone have any questions there? At what point would this be considered bullish? Good question. Okay, so the way I see it, let's go to the 4. So I talked about this earlier, and the way until I consider it bullish is when we make higher highs, right? So if we make higher highs and higher lows, then it's considered an uptrend. All right, so probably around, okay, so the last high is probably considered here, right, or this general area. So let's look left and see if there's anything actually there holding that up. So this area, so you see that we actually bottomed out here, and then we went lower, and then we came up, tried to get over that level, and then we couldn't. All right, so probably this 18.56 area. Does that answer your question? But in reality, this is what I am talking about with higher highs and higher lows. So let me just draw it out for you. So a higher high, right? It's kind of like a stair step. So this is the last high, and now this is the new high, right? So in a utopia, we would come back down, retest that last high, and then we continue higher. All right, like this. So now as soon as we can't make a higher high anymore, and then we make a lower low, now we're considered a downtrend, right? So we couldn't make another higher high, which would be this peak here. And then this is the low, and then we just broke that low. So now this would be considered a downtrend. All right, so we could expect it to come back up, touch that area, go down, until we finally can't make a lower low, and then we go higher than the last high. All right. Does that answer your question? Okay. Perfect. Okay. EPC. What do you guys see on EPC? Don't mind that gap. head and shoulders. Okay, so there needs to be a pronounced head for it to be considered a head and shoulders. All right, or same with the inverse, right? So this can't be considered a head because technically it's not even over that left shoulder. Cup and handle, yes. Yes, this is what I wanted you guys to see. Bull flag, yes, can consider this a bull flag. Yes, same with the bull pennant, right? So you guys can see this cup and handle right there. But then we could also call it an ascending triangle, right? Or we could call it a bull pennant, right? You guys are starting to understand like how all these patterns actually look exactly the same, right? They're conveying the same message, they just have different names, right? So in my opinion, the best one would be, right, either this ascending triangle or that cup and handle, right? Because this level is important because it's actually showing us data, right? A bull pennant, like when we have just like trend lines and stuff, those aren't exact levels, right? Like actual price levels. They are practically the same. So a pennant would be considered, let me draw it up here. So a pennant, we would come up and then kind of just go sideways like this. A bull flag would just be, come here, we make one little flag, and then we go higher. You see that, mic plugs? Yeah, I mean, so they're practically the same thing, if you really think about it. But the thing I just want to make sure you guys understand is that we need to get over that high, right? We need to get over this level. Okay, so let's look on the daily. Right, so the daily, we're losing momentum. Right, but that could easily change, right, if we just get some volume. Okay. Okay, so what do we call this on the MACD? Anybody know? Anybody? What do we call when the MACD looks like this and the price action looks like this? I'll draw a line for you. I mean, I guess technically, but it's really flat. Bullish divergence, opposite of that, bearish divergence, right? So, not including this wick, right, if we just use the top here, we see that we double top, but actually on the MACD, we actually lost volume trying to make that higher, trying to get up there, right? So, before this even happened, we had this top, right? We topped out, right? And then we had that bull flag. So, bull flag, right? Bull flag there. We break out of the bull flag, then we double top, right? And you would expect to have the same amount of momentum when we get to the same area on price action wise, but we don't. We actually have less, right? And so now it's even more imperative that we break out at this level, right? Because we're actually losing momentum to the upside. Does that make sense? Anyone have any questions there? Yeah. Because we want to be trading, like I said, like the kind of like the catalyst. We want to be trading with that momentum and that volume. Okay, anyone have any questions here? EPC.
Ace, is this being recorded?
Of course.
Okay.
Mike. Okay, so if you guys been in my other classes, I always tell you guys, even if you don't like a setup, like fundamentally, but you like it technically, go ahead and draw it out, and then we come back and we can see what actually happened with the technicals and what price action did. And so this is something that we've been talking about, Clorox. We actually went over this in a past class. So let me give you guys a little rundown, a little update on what's happening here. So can everybody see this really strong level here, right? This 193.25 area. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So we have 4 bounces at this level. Like this is an aggressive gap down, and then we bounced really hard, right? And then same thing here. We started moving down really aggressively, and then we had a really large move to the upside. All right, so this is a really strong level, and so we marked that out, right? But we didn't really have any catalyst pushing it, and so we just drew it out, and then I told everyone we'd come back and actually see what happened. And I encourage you guys to do the same thing when you guys go over stocks every night, if you guys do. So we actually broke over this really key level. So let's go back to the smaller time frame. So we actually broke over this key level, all right, came back down. Didn't touch it perfectly, but we're actually bouncing, all right? So if this was a good stock with a good fundamental push, we would wait for this over this level here to get in. All right, can you guys see why too? Because aftermarket, we hit that level. The next day, we actually hit the same level and double topped. So that shows us that this is a pretty strong level, right? So the bigger time frames didn't tell us that, but then we went down to the smaller time frames and we saw that small level. All right, so now we can see the 2 wicks there. All right, and then once we get over that level, we'll actually be making higher highs. So that's the definition of an uptrend, and that's kind of what we want to be looking for. Is this a tweezer top? No. A tweezer top would be if we have a green candle here, and then we have, it would kind of look like, let me see if I can draw it. Kind of hard to explain. So if we had a green candle, let me see if I can change the fill on this. Oh, yeah. Okay, so a tweezer top would kind of be like this, Mike. So we had a green candle here, and then we have a red candle that looks exactly like it, right next to it. All right. So we see that very aggressive buying, and then we see a very aggressive selling right afterwards. And then obviously vice versa for the other way. It's kind of cool. I didn't even know I could do that.
For whoever's asking, I'm going to put a chart that kind of explains the tweezer top, tweezer bottom.
Yeah.
Right now.
Okay, any questions on CLX? I didn't really want to go over it. I just wanted to give an update because we actually talked about this in last class. Okay, so VLDR. What do you guys see on VLDR? There's one important thing I want you guys to see.
I see a couple different things. I don't know about you guys.
I see a few things. Okay, so firstly, just with any stock, I like to draw my levels. So we're going to look back and see where we see aggressive buying or aggressive selling. So we see aggressive buying here. All right, this area. Right? So first thing now that we have this level, we actually see we triple bottomed here. All right, so let me go ahead and draw this out. 1, 2, 3. All right? So we triple bottomed. Another thing you could say you see is this massive inverse cup and handle, right? So
Yeah, I saw that. That was what first caught my eye.
So we see this cup here, and then we have this little bitty handle, right? And I would personally say that we're still pretty bullish, or bearish here. We're gonna have to see either some volume, some catalyst, but really over this 16 area is kind of what I'd be looking for, right? Because then we'd break that handle, right? Because we could chop in here, and I would still consider this a handle until we either broke one of these levels. Does everyone see that?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that we see a catalyst upcoming with all this talk of the Tesla full self-driving. I think it will.
Yeah, so let's see. It actually dropped some news. So let's see. Vldr to be used in Nightscope's 5th generation security robots. So that happened aftermarket. All right. We see tech's been really moving. We see an EV's been really moving. Vldr discloses multi-year agreement with Russia's AGM systems not too long ago. I think that was Thursday. I mean, there's some pretty solid catalysts here, right? We're just going to have to see that volume start pouring in. There's not really any volume to back up the news, right? But when we do see the volume, we can see in the past that this makes really aggressive moves, right? Very fast. All right. So we're just going to have to be watching this because this could either be very bullish or this could be very bearish. So this is kind of something that I will actually be keeping an eye on, right? Because of the fundamental news behind it. Right, we're just going to have to finally see when that news actually starts to hit in and investors start to either buy or really sell. Okay, does anyone have any questions about anything we talked about today? Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys coming out today and trying to learn and better yourself as a trader. I'll see you guys on Friday. Oh, actually, I'll see you guys on Wednesday. I will talk to Clark if I'll have a separate video or something for the wheel spin. But keep posting those profits so that you guys have the chance to actually win a prize. All right. I appreciate you guys coming out. Thank you guys.